Still, there must have been a psychic push from her side. Something was always off between us, and the fault lines only widened with time. She simply didn't like me, and I sensed this early. Finally, when I was 9 years old, she admitted it, loud and clear. "Marilyn," she hissed, at the end of another endless harangue about my character flaws, "I know I'm supposed to love you as my daughter, but I simply don't like you as a person." What do you do with revelations like that? I wasn't as tough as I pretended, so I simply built a wall to keep her out. Something about me infuriated her, though to be fair, she often seemed angry at life in general. She'd wanted to be a singer, but ended up married and teaching first grade straight out of university. Her teaching career lasted 2 years. 9 months after her honeymoon, my oldest brother was born, the first of 5 consecutive birth control failures. I was the can't get pregnant when you're breastfeeding baby, arriving 11 months after Philip, the slipped condom baby. My father's sperm continued to bypass a series of fruitful barriers, producing 3 younger brothers, all of us meant to be, accidental or not. My mother wound up with a brood of 5, and although she was exemplary in the housekeeping sphere, the floors were waxed and the table ready, she fell woefully short in the emotional one. And I bore the brunt. She needed a target for her anger, and that was me, returning from school in knots, wondering what I'd be blasted for when I came through the door. I could never anticipate the day's transgressions, knowing only that whatever they were, she'd been stewing them all day, along with the eternal pot of leftover soup on the stove. The attacks were soul-scathing ambushes, usually delivered between the back door and the living room, before I had a chance to remove my coat. They reduced me to tears of frustration and wordless rage. The onslaughts left no room for self-defense. And her grievances were endless. I'd never score a blameless day. I was a decent kid, a gifted student, who'd skipped a grade and brought home enthusiastic reports from my teachers. No one else saw a monster when they looked at me. But with her, I was always in the wrong. While I served as scapegoat, my brothers learned to fly under the radar. Phil took cover in his art. Doug slipped in and out of the house like a mystical fox. Howard was quiet, learning from my mistakes and biding his time in the background. And Brian, who came years after the rest of us, inherited the classical music gene, giving my mother her golden child and a vicarious second chance at professional musicianship. My father, a popular teacher and school principal, avoided unoccupied time at home and met his remaining emotional needs through golf and curling, leaving most of the parenting to her. As a couple, they bickered often and openly, and her fearsome stubbornness always won. She was barely 5 feet tall, yet no one could stand up to her. Occasionally we breached the wall to suffer awkward moments of mother-daughter intimacy. At 9, I stumbled across a cardboard box in the woods one afternoon and asked her what Tampax was. She must have been waiting to get this talk over with, because she whisked me off the family picnic blanket and into a nearby thicket, dumping way more information on my blushing head than my idle question warranted. This was shortly after a mortifying sex education slideshow at school, where Phil and I, sitting between our stony-faced parents and confronted with a series of shocking, flaccid, and erect diagrams, were traumatized to learn what they had obviously done 4 times to produce our current family. 2 years later, my mother summoned me into a public toilet stall to show me what actual tampons looked like, new and used. I was aghast. By the time my own period started, we were so estranged I wouldn't speak to her about anything, let alone my menses. 6 months into my budding womanhood, she discovered a box of tampons hidden in my room and chose another excruciating moment to confront my secrecy. It wasn't that I was ashamed of menstruating. As a relative late bloomer, I'd been pining for physical evidence that I'd actually grow up and be able to get away from her. In fact, I longed to grow a body with breasts and curves, just not with her eyes watching. Life with Mother bled from one disappointment to the next. We clashed over everything, especially my wardrobe. Every inch of my exterior was under her rule, and not because I was her little princess. She and my grandmother selected all my clothes, frugally chosen and sadly received.